I really didn't have to show up and sign on to LinkedIn and see who I'm going to talk to and all this stuff. I just wanted to show up for the hour or two that I spend DMing people and talking to people on LinkedIn. I just wanted to do that, to maximize my time. So these AI employees are basically now doing the work that I was paying $600, $700, $800 a month for, and they cost me $35 a month.
Episode 14, ditching the hustle with AI.
Ryan, who's our guest today, is not an entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur. And from dropping out of college to scaling a company to 12 million a month recurring revenue, he's got more experience in business than most people walking around and calling themselves business coaches. So, Ryan, what will our listeners learn by the end of this podcast?
It's a really great question. You don't need AI or automation for every single aspect of your business. And that there is still a place and extremely valuable inputs from humans or the owner or someone as the face, rather than all of the faceless AI stuff that we see blowing up everywhere. Yeah, I promote automations and AI. It's like my brand, it's my content, but I am the first one to tell you that you don't need it everywhere across every line of business that you have.
A very promising beginning, and I'm really looking forward to delving into all the details of when exactly to use AI and automations, when not to use it, because I feel like people do get this mixed up quite a lot. But let's start a little bit before that. I have to say that I hardly know anyone who's had a more versatile career than you. So how did it all start, and how exactly did it bring you to where you are right now? Successful agency owner, and to me, your biggest success is that anytime I call you or message you, you're in your garden.
Yeah, from an early age, I was an athlete. So I was always like dedicated to my craft, like just getting better, improving myself. But I think when I hit college, I realized that like 99% of the things everyone else was doing, saying, thinking, I was like, I don't feel that way. I don't think that way. That just feels odd to me. Why would someone follow that path? So when I dropped out of college, I remember this specifically. It was probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was on MySpace, if anyone here remembers MySpace. And I saw a banner ad on the right-hand side of the screen. And it said, do you want to get paid to record musicians? And I was like, oh, hell yeah, absolutely. This is a cool idea. Clicked the banner ad, and within 4 months, I was dropping out of university and traveling across the country to Arizona for an audio engineering trade school. And ever since then, my career has just been exploring my curiosity. It's probably the best way to describe it. Finding things that are challenging but both interesting, that like give me energy to go pursue it. And yeah, I've never been one for a traditional career path. Plant your feet with a company and work 15, 20 years for that company, titles, all of that stuff. So I've never actually chased that. I've chased more of the idea that there's more within me to explore, and the flexibility of like who we are as humans and the things that we think about, and passions and I don't know, just projects that we all want to tackle. So yeah, it's been a wild 18, 20 year career now. But when I was on tour as a musician, I basically just got sick of eating out of gas stations, being broke, traveling all the time, sleeping in my car. And I was like, I need something. I need to go back home and get something. And I saw my buddy was playing golf every day. We were 24, 25 years old. And I was like, dude, what do you do? Like, how are you on the golf course every single day? I lived above a Starbucks, so he was there every morning getting coffee. I'm like, do you even work? What the hell do you do? He said, well, I've run my own executive recruiting agency. Why don't you come hang out with me for a day and I'll show you the ropes or whatever. And that was it. His name was Ryan too. So when Ryan introduced me to that was all I needed. Is my first taste of like entrepreneurship. And yeah, we scaled his company to, I think it was about 100. Our best performing month was like 120,000, 14 months after I joined the company. He wanted to still play golf every day. and I wanted to actually grow a company. So left, started my own firm, grew that to 70, 80,000 a month. And that was 2016 with the Trump Clinton election. And it was January of that month. And as anyone knows, in like hiring and recruiting, like January is the month. Everyone wants a job. Every company wants to hire. It's just mayhem. So we made our best in January. And then I didn't collect a single dollar from my clients from February through September. They either stiffed me, didn't want to pay me, knew I was a small shop. I had hired employees because of that good month. We had a previous year, we were smashing it. And it was the election year. So no one knew, like, Trump was the wild card. What's he going to do for the economy? Is Hillary going to get elected? Like, no one wanted to make any hiring decisions or business strategy decisions. So I was forced to go back to the market, to the job market, as just an independent consultant and contractor. And I built systems and operations, hiring thousands of people for, enterprises, the Fortune 500, for VC-backed startups. And I think the last inflection point for me in my career was when I made the shift from HR and recruitment into data scientists. I was hiring junior data analysts, and I was doing the interviews, and they were talking things like, Python and, Tableau. I'm like, what is all this stuff? I got to learn this so I can actually have these interviews. And I started going down that pathway. And when COVID hit and the world stopped hiring everywhere, I was like, yeah, I should probably go back to college and like add a few more skills to my toolkit. So I went back for machine learning, completed my degree, and the last 5 years have been building automation systems, writing code, building AI, bots, everything you can think of. And it's, again, back to the initial statement of chasing my curiosity. It's like the world of AI and automation is endless. You could go down any rabbit hole you want to go down, especially today. And I think that it's keeping me interested and it's keeping me busy. So I'm probably going to plant my feet in this industry for a while.
In these first two businesses, your friend's business and then yours, Ryan, what were you doing? What was your role there?
Well, it was just the two of us to start. So, we called ourselves a boutique recruiting agency, executive search firm. But really, we were just 20-year-old hustlers just trying to make cold calls, cold emails, get in touch with people. I was 24, 25 years old calling on like Fortune 1000 C-level executives, trying to talk like I knew what the hell they were up to and what they were doing. So it was probably a lot of bullshit, to be honest with you, but it was just a lot of hard work, I think. And back then it was, this is 10, 15 years ago. So, back then we didn't have half of the tools that we had today to make business ownership and like solopreneurship much easier. So we would just wake up smiling and dialing, we used to say, and that was it. That was it all day long, talking to candidates, trying to land business, trying to get people, hired, making sure the candidate actually showed up on day one for the job, because we don't get paid if they don't show up. So there was a lot of the kind of the minutia. In my second business, that's when I realized like I can't do this for the rest of my life. So I need to actually start building, business systems. So while I did do that to start my business, but we had some really great months and I ended up hiring people. I brought on an intern or two. I think I had like 2 or 3 employees at the height. And then I hit my next roadblock, obviously, which is like what to do when your clients just refuse to pay you and you can't sue them, and like legal fees would just eat up your company. So I ran into the next issue, which was doing everything yourself and building systems and managing and trying to train employees and trying to pick up where they can't do. That was kind of my next roadblock. But yeah, I've done everything you can think of in terms of business.
I feel like I've heard and lived through all of this so many times. There's a really cool concept that you have, your AI employees, right? So can you explain a little bit what AI employees are?
Sure.
And what should you not hire an AI employee for?
Yes. So I think it's just kind of the marketer in me has like tried to coin that term because it just stands out, right? It's AI employees. People are like, what? This sounds crazy. I want to find out more. So the word itself makes it sound a little bit more esoteric than it is. But really all I do is just create, whether it's inside of an automation that happens, a workflow that happens, or if it's something like a custom GPT, which are very, very, people don't understand how easy it is to actually make your own custom GPT. And that's why I built that 5-day free course, because I was like, everyone needs to learn how to do this stuff. I'll give you a real life example. So over the summer, I was paying my virtual assistant. We had a really great lead flow, sort of DM connection outreach system for LinkedIn. And I found one automation platform and created one custom GPT that takes care of everything she was doing. Updating my CRM, doing the initial outreach, all of the stuff that she was doing. She would basically tee up a conversation, a DM conversation for me, and then would alert me in our CRM for, hey, Ryan, this person responded, it's your turn. And she would hand that off to me so that I really didn't have to show up and sign on to LinkedIn and see who I'm going to talk to and all this stuff. I just wanted to show up for the hour or two that I spend DMing people and talking to people on LinkedIn. I just wanted to do that, maximize my time. So these AI employees are basically now doing the work that I was paying her $600, $700, $800 a month for. And they cost me $35 a month. And maybe a little bit more of my time, because if I'm the one prompting it, right, or talking to the custom GPT, yeah, then maybe it's a little bit more of my time. But I mean, for what was happening beforehand, it's like eons better than the system we had in play before.
How many custom GPTs are you using currently?
One for sort of social media content marketing, one for analyzing the different CRMs that I have, and then one for ideation, business strategy, operations, kind of like maintaining the health, we'll call it, of my business. So being a data scientist, I'm probably a freak with collecting information from stuff. So I have a ton of automations that just very seamlessly in the background will just like curate information for me inside of Airtable, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just basically a Google Sheet, but it's on steroids. A lot more you can do with it. And the custom GPTs I have actually have a communicative link to Airtable. So they can read, they can analyze information from my spreadsheets, give me the information I need to make business decisions, and then I can actually talk back to it to say, update this with this information, or delete this, or create a new row, or whatever it is. So I don't ever have to live inside the actual spreadsheet itself. It's almost like I'm talking to this ethereal AI employee that's probably smarter than me in a lot of the analysis that it does. It just takes some work to figure out exactly like what you would need it for, like what the core purpose of this thing should do, and keeping it as simple as possible.
That sounds absolutely amazing.
I would actually like to rewind back a little bit before talking about the nitty-gritty. I'm really curious about how your operational experience enabled you to start doing these data science automations, and just how is it exactly the link between business optimization and business automations, just based on like everything that you did before that?
I've always had this like weird imposter syndrome thing where feeling like a recruiter or the term HR wasn't as valuable until I actually moved up the ladder and like started talking to actual stakeholders and realizing how capital intensive hiring people is. Like labor costs are, for the most part, at least 1/3 of every business's overhead, right? It's such a huge chunk. But not only that, you hire someone and they end up leaving 3 months later. Well, that's like 6 months of time lost. So I think I've interviewed 12, 13,000 people in my lifetime. Like, having worked with a ton of humans, you start to find like patterns in people, the way they act, the way they talk, the things they tell you that you know are bullshit. Like, I've just become this weird sort of, I don't know, interrogator of sorts. And when I jumped into data science, I realized that like programming is very binary. Like, there's patterns and things that you have to like live by, or algorithms, strategies, whatever, to get to a certain result. And that there's such a discrepancy between human patterns and like what people do, the variety of what things, you know, happen inside of HR and recruitment. and the non-variety of like programming ones and zeros, like you can't deviate from this thing where it just doesn't work. And when you live in both worlds, it's just interesting to relay one side to the other side in terms of like communication, what stakeholders are looking for, how you talk to one side versus the other side. I remember I was interviewing for a COO role for a startup, and the guy was like, hey, our whole team is engineers to this point. Like, your operations, your HR, how do you plan on building relationships with these people? And I was like, I just got to learn to talk about the things that they talk about, their language, the way they want to, speak about certain things, the way they think. So having all of that sort of operations, HR, workforce style skills, experience behind me has allowed me to like really mold in well, I think, with engineering communities, people like yourself, the way I write my content, like the way we think, how we can work through a problem very strategically. And yeah, it's just like, it's like the seesaw effect. It's like helped me here, helped me there, helped me here. And I have to balance, that personalities and things that I'm doing, ways that I'm speaking to people. Yeah.
So you said a couple of very interesting things, but what I would really like to go into is actually your current agency. You kind of talked about the employees right now, but I know that you personally handle your marketing, right?
Yes.
Okay, so everything that you said beforehand this was like marketer talk, in all honesty. This was learning how the others speak so that you can speak like them. Can you tell us what exactly your strategy is in terms of marketing, and where exactly does automation come into it?
We'll talk in terms of like cold email campaigns. I mean, for the most part, if you run a cold email campaign and you don't have some type of personalization inside of it, and you're sending 20,000 emails a month, then your response rate, your replies rates are going to be 1-2% at best, especially nowadays. People's inboxes are just flooded. But inside of that cold email automation, if you can insert a GPT that looks at all of the data of the person, like yourself, where you're from, your history, what company you run, what you do, it's all out there. We try and we don't like our information to be out there, but like you can find anything on anyone. And if you have that information, you can feed it to just a prompt, a GPT inside of an automation, and it will at least double your reply rates. At least that alone, like it's kind of like marrying the marketing, the human, the sales psychology thing, but like not wanting to have to do it all yourself. My social media content, I've written a ton of really bad pieces of content, and I've seen a ton of my stuff flop. Like it's just part of the process. But having like a GPT content editor where you're like, this sucked, how can I make this better? Use people who are elite copywriters as your knowledge base and tell me exactly where I went wrong here. So there's like AI and tools and automations and all this stuff that can help you as a copywriter, as a thinker, as a business strategist, as a, social media personality. All of this stuff helps you with your sales outreach. I've been showing my community my Sales by Chat GPT, which literally has my exact framework for how I approach a DM conversation. And if in 2 clicks, I can just copy the conversation and send it over to my Sales by Chat bot and say, tell me what to say next. Analyze where we are in my Sales by Chat process. Tell me what to say next. It gives me something and I'm like, okay, let me just edit a little bit. And then I send it to the person, I move on. Like these are this efficiency, time speeding hacks, for lack of better words, that AI and automation can really help you with as a marketer, as a one-person business or a small business owner.
That's amazing. The cold email example you mentioned. Let's say that now you're trying to personalize the cold emails. Do you have a bot that does the research and places the specific information about the person in the right place?
Yes. Short answer to that is yes. So obviously you're storing lead data somewhere, spreadsheet somewhere. there are tools like Ep.14. But when you actually have, let's say, an email address or someone's LinkedIn profile, whatever it is, there are scraping tools that, whether you pay for them or not, they're going to collect this data if it's out there, and they can what's called enrich the data with more information, yes. Addresses, phone numbers, experience, all of that stuff. And if you can collect that, usually you pay for this stuff, but if you can collect that in a long spreadsheet for your target ICP, your target client, your target customer, from there, it's just a matter of feeding that to a prompt, to a GPT, to say, here's the information on the customer, here's my templated email, fill in some of the pieces, or give me 1 or 2 sentences at the top that's a little bit more personalized for that person, based on that enriched data, that enriched lead information. And these things are, I know I'm probably like way over people's heads by saying this and not showing it, but it's like so easy to build this stuff anymore. Once you build it once, it's like riding a bike. You're like, oh, that makes total sense now.
And that collection process, do you have it automated as well?
I just use different tools that are out there, cold email tools, data enrichment tools, software.
Right.
In terms of like buying lead data, a lot of my automation agency clients are, funny enough, in recruitment. A lot of them, I think like 50 or 60% of our clients are law firms, recruiting firms, and accounting firms, because these are people with like high volume processes who have no real technical skills, but know they need a better process. They know they need automation or some type of system to help them go faster. So there are lists you can buy. And there are hundreds of platforms out there for anyone who's listening, $50 a month, $90 a month, and you get us up to a certain number of leads, and they already have all of this data for you. So when you do your little search inside of their platform, inside of the leads platform, you just literally collect all, download as a CSV, and they're yours. They're your cold leads. So now they're completely cold, right? They have no idea who the hell I am. So I wouldn't advise going that route first if you haven't like sold your products before or don't have client results or whatever. I always suggest going warm first, going your first network. But yeah, if you want to actually start scaling, growing, moving outside of yourself, outside of just being a one-person operator, then yeah, these tools are like invaluable for people.
Let's touch on the content creation side of things. We were talking about this before we went live, and I know that you are against having AI create content for you, but I also I seem to understand that you use it to shorten some of the tasks that you have related to content creation. Could you describe that for us?
So my AI employee, my ghostwriting employee, the knowledge that I've fed it, that it has learned from, is not the billions of data points that, like, let's say ChatGPT has, for example. I've fed it the 500, 600 pieces of content that I've written in the last 18 months here, and it knows my voice. It understands how I write, the formatting, the structure. And one of the things, if you're ever prompting AI or building GPTs and bots and things, what most people rely on is the training data that this bot has been trained on by OpenAI and Microsoft and Google and all these like massive corporations that are just feeding it thousands, hundreds of thousands, billions of data points. But if you don't actually give it a bullseye with which to say, this is a great post, this is a terrible post, this is a great post, this is a great listicle, this is a story post, or whatever it is, you don't give it the actual bullseye with which to shoot at, then it'll just buckshot. It'll give you anything and everything, and it'll pull from stuff that isn't you. So I have all of my content data in there, a list of about 30 or 40 templates that I just kind of cycle through. So the step one is it asks me, what content would you like to repurpose today? So if I grab like an article on the internet that I thought was valuable, or a blog article, a newsletter article that I wrote, something long form, even just an old LinkedIn post or something that I have, I'll feed it. It'll ask me, what platform are we writing on today? I'll say LinkedIn. It has a list of LinkedIn templates, and it'll just suggest one. And as soon as I say, yeah, that one actually, that's a good idea for today, thumbs up, it'll actually attempt to fill in my words from the repurposed thing that we're rewriting into that template. And I mean, it gets me 70, 80% of the way there. It does require me to like edit stuff. And I don't want it to look like a template. I want it to actually kind of breathe and have this sort of living feel to it. So I changed some things, but now I mean, literally I'm posting now twice a day on LinkedIn because with this thing, I can get 14 pieces of content written in like 2 hours.
Wow. So you can actually double your output just because of the automation you have.
At least double your output.
Next step is commenting. Well, and I know your position on it, but I'd like you to talk about it. Like,
yeah,
should we use AI to write comments for us? Because that's what distributes our content on LinkedIn. Do you do it?
Well, I know we were talking about this before we clicked record. Let me ask you a question. If you knew it made you money, if you knew you could grow an actual business doing it, would you do it?
That's
and
a
Dana
very good
or Fran,
question.
either one of you can answer this. But would you do it?
I would say no.
And why is that?
My reasoning is there is nothing more important, and this I learned from my experience. Maybe other people have different experiences. There is nothing more important in building a business than the relationships we build.
Dana?
Yeah, I have moral conflicts with that, simply because it feels wrong. If I didn't have any other choice, I would do it. But the first thing that I would do would try and think of other ways to get to the point where I want to be, which I essentially have. Because to me, engagement was maybe 70% of the driver for my reach. And I'd convinced myself that I need to do this all the time. Otherwise, I'm not going to get any reach. Like I was 100% sure about this. And it was eating up a lot of my time. Hell, like I was even recommending to people to do it when someone would come to me saying, hey, my reach is really low. I'd be like, you need to engage more, which I admit. I mean, not that it's not true, because it is true, but engagement is like paying rent instead of paying a mortgage. It's just, you just get this one day short-term gain and that's it. Like you're not going to bank on this tomorrow. You're not going to bank on this the day after tomorrow or in 2 years' time.
Yep.
So the way I fix that problem for myself, because I really don't want to engage for the sake of reach and I don't have the time to do it, is I just started writing more content and better content. And this is, I'm posting 7 days a week. I batch create, I schedule upfront. I really worked on getting my content to speak to my ideal client, and that's literally it. I leave maybe 20 comments a week. That's it. And my impressions have never been higher. So to sum it up, try to find a different solution.
So here's the flip side of that, right? So you two are business owners. Would you ever do business with someone who you saw was using GPT or writing bot comments on your stuff? Would you ever do business with that person? Let's say B2B environment. So if you saw that Ryan Hutchinson, after this podcast, for the next week, commented on both of your pieces of content every day, and you could tell, you're like, that's a bot written content or comment.
My answer is very simple. I have disconnected from people I see using comments on my posts, and I plainly ignore them now.
My answer is going to be a bit more Machiavellian one. I would try to pitch that person because if they feel the need to use a badly written GPT to get traction, then they really need my help. But if I was in any other industry than what I'm doing at the moment, let's say I own a clothing brand, for example, and I tried to do founder-led marketing, and I noticed someone is trying to slide into my DMs, but they're using it by AI written comments, I would totally block them. Now, where it gets very interesting is if I get someone who's in my comment section and they write these good comments, like really interesting comments, and I find out that it's AI, I would actually be impressed. But we're just all hypocrites. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's my answer. Even though I've been such a stalwart, like you'll never see me use a bot to write comments, period, is a lot less business related than it is more of a personal, like weird personality trait of like not having control over something. Like for me, having someone else speak for me is the antithesis of why I went into business, of why I'm an entrepreneur, of why I want to like go tackle these huge projects and do stuff and not have someone like slap my wrist over it or tell me when I can go to the bathroom and eat lunch and do all that stuff. So to have something that's not even human acting as me, it goes against everything I stand for as a person, as an individual. Now, yeah, all of the reasons you just said, I mean, you could throw even 100 more reasons out there. But I've now, every single time that I have a bot writing a comment on my stuff, and most of them are easy to tell. Some of them are a little bit more difficult to tell, but like when they show up every day, you're like, you've said this the same style, the way that you've said this for 5 days in a row. Now I know you're using a bot, something like that. All I reply with is just a robot emoji. That's it. Or I'll just reply bot. And so I'm letting you know that I know what you're up to. And eventually, if they keep showing up on my stuff, I just delete them, because I've said this in the past. Your content in the comment section, it's the billboard for your business. If you don't want someone spray painting all over your billboard, keep it fucking clean. Like, I don't want someone being like, that is a great piece of content. Let me go see whatever everyone else is saying. And there's 50 bot comments. And they're like, oh, he's just faking his engagement. I never want that for my brand, for my business. So unless you're building like a faceless YouTube channel or something like that, then yeah, by all means, then do what you're going to do. But not for my personal brand. So no way.
You just said something very interesting, because we all know that we do go and read comment sections. Like, that's everyone's guilty pleasure, I'm convinced, because I can't be the only weirdo. But I'd never really thought about this, Ryan, that it does make a certain impression when you have AI comments in your comment section and what people think about you. Because especially if you have a post that blows up a little bit and then you have a lot of AI comments, and people are just going to think either you have a bot that comments on your posts or you're in a freaking pod, which is probably even worse. But I've never really thought about it this way. So this is quite a perspective shift in my mind. And I already have a list of 10 people I'm going to block from my connections in the 10 minutes after the podcast.
I'll give you a very clear, give you like a 60-second example. But like, I was on Twitter yesterday and I saw Matt Barker, who's a good buddy of mine, write a post. And the first 5 comments were bot written comments by creators on LinkedIn I know who have 100, 200,000 followers. And I was like, every one of you is toast now to me. I'm not going to follow any one of your content, like none of it. So, and Matt knows it. I know Matt Barker, and I know Matt knows what's going on. And that to me is instant. I'm checked out. I'm done. So I don't support that one bit.
Because I notice how much you care about your personal brand. My question to you is, because Fran and I know this, but our audience doesn't, how exactly are you moving along your marketing? You mentioned cold emails. What's the split between what you do on LinkedIn and, let's say, cold email?
So I get leads from multiple sources, not just LinkedIn. If you're just on LinkedIn to get leads, it's like putting all of your money into like Apple stock. You're just going to have to ride the wave of whatever Apple does in terms of the charts. So there's multiple ways that I teach people inside the community to actually get leads. One is like, for one, Reddit is a gold mine. And every like lead gen specialist knows this. Communities, Reddit forums. I've even seen Nicholas Cole talk about, like, in the beginning of things, he was just like straight up Quora, answering people who had the questions that he knew he could solve. He was just writing responses on Quora.
I did that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, people think that like writing a piece of content or like commenting on someone else's stuff for like, you know, paying, what is it, $100 a month now for sales nav, which I don't pay for. Like, people think that this is the only way you can get leads just because there's information there. I would rather go find someone that has the problem that I know I can solve and just try and add some more value to them or connect with them elsewhere. Now, that's communities, forums, other places like that. If we're looking at it in terms of like, again, I get back to this bullseye thing, right? Now you're not on the red dot of the bullseye, the dartboard, but you're like close to it, right? You're getting very warm. Cold emails is like kind of the outer ring, but cold email allows you to do a volume approach. So if you have a service, if you have something productized, if you just know I've sold, a package of $2,000 and a package of $5,000, and I know I can deliver and churn out and whatever, and I have the delivery process behind me to take on more and more clients. All of these bros in your DM saying like, I can book you 60 sales calls next week. Like that's what they're all selling. It's just a cold email outreach. So what you do is you create various email domains, email accounts. So I have like 15 other email accounts that on repeat are just sending, 20, maybe 25 emails a day from each one of those accounts to a huge list of cold leads that I've bought or scraped or found on the internet. And this is like something I don't recommend, again, unless it's like the next iteration in your business, the next sort of scale growth model for your business, because it's just really like hard to do. You could burn your domain and then you got to, start fresh and like build new domains and stuff. So it's not something I recommend right off the bat. But I'll tell you what it will teach you, because you will get sales calls. It will make you one hell of a salesperson if you can sit on a Zoom call with someone you've never met after you've gotten their attention with a piece of copy, an email, and actually try and sell them on something. So it does make you a better salesperson.
Yeah. Cold outreach is the hardest part, but when you get it right, it can be very profitable.
Extremely lucrative. Yeah. That's the scale model. So once you have your thing ready to go, you have the security blanket of your content and your warm leads and your clients. That's the trajectory. You start scaling with cold email.
Right. You have this all automated. Like, what are the results that you're getting right now with these cold emails that you mentioned? You're sending like 25 a day. What's the response rate?
So I don't run these every single day. I run them like this summer was a pretty slow period for me in terms of like organic and everything that was going on social media. Plus summers are always just slower in general for business. People are away on vacation and whatnot. So I was running a ton of cold email campaigns over the summer. Typically, response rates are around 3.5–4% for me. They were trash last year when I was doing this. I was at like 1.5%. So I don't know if I was just like, my copy was bad. I was kind of new to it. So I'm like, it's not really kind of tinkering with this thing. I was screwing up. I was burning domains, whatever. But now that I have my agency offer dialed in, I have a ton of automations that are sort of templatized that I can easily deliver to clients in a more custom manner. And I'm not creating from scratch. Typically, I have anywhere from 10 to 20 sales calls a week. And once I get upward of there, like I don't want to do any more of that stuff. I'm not trying to grow some 8-figure business. Sometimes I'll tag in a few contractors that I have in terms of salespeople to sit on calls for me. And they're just people I've worked with over the last like 10 years of my life. And virtual assistants I use to help manage a lot of some of the inboxes and responses and things. And then when we deliver in my Slack channel, I have about 4 or 5 automation engineers. So if it's something that I don't have built, that I need built, I can just quickly outsource to them, ping them in Slack and just say, hey, here's the recording of the client onboarding. Here's exactly what they're looking for in terms of the work order. Give me the timeline, et cetera, so I can continually update the client. And we go from there. But my agency is more, to answer your question, my agency is more of like it's more, I don't want to say, it's not a lifestyle business because I do work my ass off at certain times, but it's the next iteration of my curiosity, for lack of better words.
Do you also do cold outreach on LinkedIn?
Yep. So back to the model I was telling you that my virtual assistant and I were using before, which now I'm using bots to do. So I have the luxury now of having, 14,000 people as followers. And my content, while it doesn't get a ton of reach because I'm not engaging, I do max out my connection requests on the free plan at 100 a week. And I can just simply have the bot scrape all my new followers for the week for my content. And I can find anywhere from 50 to 70 who are pretty close to my ICP just from my followers. And it just sends the connection request with the message to say, hey, thanks so much for following, or here's my newsletter. If you like my content, here's my newsletter. Or some type of simple opener to qualify them as business owners. I say, how's business going? Or whatever it is, like, how's Q4? How's your business in Q4? And if someone comes back to me and they're like, would you mean my day job? I'm like, okay, well then they're not my ICP. We're not going to continue the sales conversation. But at least I reached out to say thanks for following, and now they're seeing my content. And then vice versa, if they do respond and they're like, going good, how about you? Then you just continue the sales by chat conversation. So that's kind of my cold outreach method, but it really all starts from content.
Right. So it starts with the connection request, right? And then,
Yep.
and you know who you're connecting with. You're actually connecting with your ICP. It makes a lot of sense. And the way you describe it, why would anyone need Sales Navigator? I mean,
well, so I've actually been debated on this, and I'm not afraid of changing my position. If you pay $100 a month and you get an extra 100 connection requests to send every week, so that's $100 for an extra 400 outgoing messages you can send, theoretically, right? Now let's even say half of them accept. You're just basically buying leads cheaper, assuming
but you
that
can do that with premium, right? You don't need Navigator.
Yeah, so I don't, because I don't pay for this stuff. Like, what's premium cost? Is it like $50, something like that?
It's half, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go.
And because the way I was looking at this was Sales Navigator is trying to implement AI and trying to get to the point where it can read your ICP, and you can create personas, and then it starts with, I've been using it and played around with it, and they're trying to implement AI and make it better, but what you're describing sounds much better, honestly.
Yeah, it's cheaper, and it's just easier for me to manage, because I don't want to have 200 DM conversations that I have to like open up and try and manage myself, because I want to be part of that the networking process, regardless if I'm trying to sell my stuff or pander for my services. Like, regardless, I want to be the one actually talking to people.
Do you have a bot that looks into your comments to try and find I don't know if you have enough comments that it would make sense to even have that, but is this a consideration?
I don't. I've actually done this in the past. Like, if you write a post where the responses in the comments are going to be your prospects telling you their problems to help you with solutions, your offers, or to reach out, I mean, you don't need a bot. You can just highlight everything and just say, here's a LinkedIn post I wrote with the comments into GPT, and just extract some problems you find from there. So you don't need to get too overly complex with that stuff.
Yeah. How does inbound look like for you?
It's like, I don't know. It's a roller coaster, because I'll tell you what, here's what pisses me off about LinkedIn. So I just shared the post from this podcast that you wrote. Take a guess how many impressions LinkedIn gave me on that. Because it's a repost and because it's an event share.
Yeah, the event shares suck. But you know what? It's going to get distributed now. After we do the event, it doesn't make any sense. But that's what happens.
It was like 136 impressions.
Yeah.
And I have
I had something similar before throughout the week.
Click follow, and I got 136 impressions on a post that I wrote sharing someone else's thoughts. So, like, who knows? That's why I don't rely on inbound. Anyone that says, inbound only, they've probably been writing content for years or have, 50, 60, 80,000
I'm the inbound only guy.
Oh, are you?
I'm the inbound
Interesting.
only guy. I am, but not from the point of view that most people talk about. So basically, how people look at inbound is I write content and you reach out to me, right? What I do is I come from a direct response background. So what I do is I set up systems for content creators akin to what we do in advertising.
Interesting.
Right. So with a lead magnet that goes into your email list, that person then is offered the next step. So that's sort of what I was looking for. Like your inbound is just people DMing you, right?
Yeah, so I'm probably not as fluent to you in those systems. Like you're elite in that regard. And some days when I write content, I have no other purpose than just to get thoughts out of my head. It's not really for like business or to teach someone or to attract someone.
Yeah.
So, in my content, automation and that, like some of the stuff that I write about is not, leadership tips and Chrome extensions and top 10 books I read. So it's not going to draw a huge number to begin with. But yeah, for the most part, it's just, I get anywhere from, 50 to 100 incoming connection requests. And maybe like, I don't know, 15 to 20 of them are like people interested in the stuff or, want to just DM me and talk to me or want to sell me their stuff. So, it's hit or miss for me.
Interesting.
Ryan said plenty of interesting things, and I have to admit that I didn't realize that there was so much nuance in what you do, but it just really made me think that it just really cuts down the time that you have to invest into certain parts of your business, but you just really need to know exactly what you're doing in terms of marketing and sales. And it's not what I would really like our audience to take away, I guess, is that if you have no idea about marketing, don't go into AI and automation to try to automate that marketing because you're just clueless. I think your best bet is to work with a marketing specialist and craft some kind of a strategy there, and then, like, only then try to outsource certain parts to even a VA or an AI or some kind of an automation. But don't just watch Ryan doing these things and just talking about it with such an ease because he's a bloody data scientist, so he knows his stuff, and he's also got so much business experience. It's unbelievable. I would say that what you do, Ryan, is suitable for people who've already worked these things out, and now they just need to clear time in their diary and just simplify their operations. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and this is a fantastic boomerang to the opening statement that you don't need to automate and use AI for everything. What the most time-intensive practice that you can spend on your business is building a system works because you've been in it manually, or a mentor you've paid for, someone has taught you this. And if you will actually take the time to set it up properly, your system properly, then you can just twist little knobs and add something here or sprinkle a little AI in there. You don't need to just go for the whole thing as soon as you start. Start with one system, make it simple, scale it, work from there. And follow my content if you want to be even more confused.
Yeah, I guess automation is a bit like outsourcing. Like you shouldn't outsource what you don't understand. So first learn it, learn how to do it, and once you have a good understanding of it, either outsource it or automate it, I would say.
You got it. That's the exact steps.
Ryan, you said follow my content. How can people follow you? Where can they find you? On LinkedIn? We'll put it in the show notes regardless, but
yeah, I'd say so. Everything stems off of my newsletter and my LinkedIn content. So I'm on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn primarily, but I would say go follow me on LinkedIn. It's where I hang out the most. And as you guys know, I answer all my DMs. So if you have any questions, happy to help.
Awesome.
Ryan, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. I personally learned a lot. I hope the same goes to our listeners. Thanks so much for having.
I did too. If you're following us on Spotify, on YouTube, don't forget to hit the follow button, the subscribe button, so you can be notified of the next one. And also, we have a free, for now, community of of content creators which you can join. You will find also a link in the description. So find that link, join us there. You'll find different experts like Dana and myself and a few other people. You can ask anything you want regarding LinkedIn marketing or marketing in general, or any other helpful stuff for content creators. We're there to help out. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks a lot once again, Ryan, and see you next week.